think you guys have read their biography. It's on the website, it's in the newsletter, so I'm not gonna go through that, but Pastor Meyers and his wife are joining us from Florida. They're taking the time to be with us, so hopefully, we can let them impart the word that they have for us today and enjoy the presence. So Pastor, I'm gonna open up to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice talking with all of you. The last weekend, we spent a time in one of the churches that we pastor throughout our ministry. It's the Bering Spain Spanish Church, remembering so many wonderful memories. And today we just came from church, ate something quickly, as you probably did. And here we are, ready to impart some ideas that we learn, we apply to us, and we wanted to share with all of you. As you probably noticed already, English is not our language. We struggle in communicating in English. So if you do not understand something, please let us know, so that somebody from your congregation may translate to you what we intended to say. And I wonder if it is possible to somebody send me a cup of water so that we have. You can choose, send it by UPS or regular mail, whatever way you prefer to. One more detail before the prayer, and I'll ask my wife to conduct the prayer, is that camera that is showing everybody in the church. Is it possible to lower a little bit so that we, instead of seeing the, excellent, that's perfect. So we see more the two of you who are seated at the church. And we noticed that what happened? We noticed that we have a Lily and Paulo on the line also, experiencing the connection or enjoying the connection through your mean. Let's have a word of prayer to start.
Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful Sabbath day. Thank you for the opportunity of worshiping you and resting on this day. At this moment, we request your presence in this meeting, that everything that is said could be to build up our families, to encourage our members, to make us grow and have happier families and happier homes. This we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Let me start by asking you to repeat something that I will say. I wanted to know the level of your Spanish. Let's say uno.
Uno.
Say dos.
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 Say now three. Tres. So since you are bilingual already, why don't we speak in Spanish and you understand Spanish? Will that be okay? Well, we wanted to start with the first presentation that has to do with with God's purpose in the families. Building families with God. How to restore God's original plan. By this, we need to go back a little bit to the beginning. And there are two passages in the Genesis that give us the 4 principles that God provides to the human race to be happy, faithful, and loving each other for the rest of our lives. Which are those 2 verses? Number 1 is very well known. I mean, It has to do with the wedding ceremony that God conducted to Adam and Eve on Genesis 2, verse 24, that says, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother, shall become united and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. We notice that we have three indications, two directions that God intended to provide to our fathers in our race. In the other passage, it's a little bit earlier on page on verse 18, as you see, that says it's not good, or other version says it's not sufficient, or it is not satisfactory that the man should be alone. So between those two verses, we learn four principles, which are, number one is to leave. God intended for the new couple to separate themselves from their fathers and from their mothers. And that separation is not only physical, sometimes it is hard to achieve, and we understand we don't live in a perfect world, but that's the original intention that God provided to the human race. It is also emotional. So the connection now, it stops to be in between the parents and the son, the parents and the daughter, and begins the connection, emotional connection between the couple, him and her, and also a financial separation. It is good to receive some gifts, some checks from the parents from time to time. I enjoy it personally. We don't enjoy it, just pass the checks to us because we continue to enjoy them. But one thing is to receive some gifts, the other is to live dependently financially from our parents. So this is the first principle. Second principle has to do with the cleave, the union. God intended to achieve a unity between Adam and Eve, which is hard to understand today because we live in a different world after sin. But God intended to have such a unity that they cannot be separated, although two bodies, but united in purpose, in mission, in thinking, in including everything else. And I believe that today the two elements, the two glues that connects better the human race on the marriage has to do with love and commitment. Love is easy to talk, is a little more difficult to understand what love means. I'm not talking about God's love, because we all know what God loves is. It's a principle. It doesn't vary according to whatever other individual do or does. I'm talking about not that type of love, but the type of love that we have, the emotional element, the emotional part of love. You can imagine, let's say that my wife and I came from the honeymoon. We begin our lives together. My wife never prepared rice, but she knows that rice is my favorite meal. So because she loves me, she begins to prepare rice every day. And I admire her dedication. I love her more because what she is doing, knowing that it is not something that she is used to. But because she didn't know how to prepare, the first meal, the rice was overcooked. didn't feel good. And I said, thank you, sweetie. It's really beautiful. I love it. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for the intention that you provided to us. Let's say that she continues to do overcook rice. And after one entire week of eating overcooked rice, my expression to her is not as, hi, sweetie. Probably I'm saying, thank you. It was a good intention. Hopefully, you will ask my mother or somebody else some ideas on how to better cook rice. Let's imagine that she continues to do the overcooking rice for the entire month. By that time, my love, my expression of love is not the same as you can imagine when we started the honeymoon. That's what I mean, love, as one of the glue elements that connects and keeps unit the man and the woman in marriage. As you can imagine, love is not enough because it fluctuates from one point to the next throughout our lifespan. So that is why we need the second glue, the second piece that keeps the unity in marriage, which is the commitment. The commitment says that if I say yes, and I am God's son, he expects me to keep my words for the rest of my life. And if I said yes to her when I got married, God expects me to keep that word as a commitment to her as well as to him, because he is the one that he encouraged me to keep the unity based on the second element. It was typical in the Old Testament, as you see on the screen, the commitment part in a new marriage, because parents were more involved in the decision of who your husband, who your wife will be in the future. I do remember that I was presenting this seminar in Spanish, of course, and my daughter was present, our daughter was present. And at the end, when we were heading home after the presentation, I mentioned to her on the car, I told Lizzie, I believe on the Old Testament in regard to commitment. What if I decide who will be your husband? And immediately, not even giving a second, she says, Daddy, I love the New Testament. So coming to the reality, the second principle is unity, cleave, be together. And that is achieved by the two elements, because love is not enough because it fluctuates. Commitment is enough, but it is not enough without love, because you can be in a relationship and feel that you are in a cell, trapped in a cell, unless you have love. So those two elements are essential to have the unity, in a permanent unity in our relationship. That is the second principle that I'm learning from this verse. Number 3, the third principle is based on the verse 18 that says, helper suitable for him. If you allow me to say it in my words, what I imagine God said to Adam and Eve at that day, at that moment, will be something like this. Adam, Eve is not equal, is not exactly the same as you are. And I imagine being a little red, flash, Adam saying, kind of indicating to God, I already noticed she has something that I don't have it. But God says, no, I'm talking about more than that. It is true that from outside we are different, but I intentionally made Eve different from you. She will see the world from a different perspective, and she is not incorrect. Remember that my gift to you is perfect. And the reason because I'm doing it differently, it is because I want you to learn that you do not know everything, that you need to learn, and based on the other side of you to have a better perspective. In addition to that, God made us both to his image. And apparently God gave some pieces of his image to Adam and some pieces though of his image to Eve, so that the two of us together, we better reflect God maximum intention on us. And the number 4, the fourth principle is intimacy. Intimacy varies from men and women. For women, intimacy means closeness, talking, communication. But for men, typically for men, I'm not saying every man there, and I'm not saying, maybe yes, saying myself, intimacy speaks about sex. And I don't know if I'm feeling uncomfortable to some of you by using the word sex. It has been a taboo in my culture, but I hope it is not on you, because that was something that God gave to the human race. So if God gave it, that type of intimacy, also that intimacy means that it is good as everybody else, everything else, it has been perfect. But God intended to put it into a perspective. The last lane on the screen, it tells the cake is to be eaten after the meal, not outside of the meal, meaning marriage, or between meals. I hope everybody understands what I'm tending to say. So in summary, those principles are: first, separate from your parents. If you want to have the maximum intent for your happiness, separate from your parents. Number 2, join the spouse based on 2 principles, based on 2 glues: love and commitment. Number 3, accept that Nibia is not like you. God, intended to be different. And number 4, celebrate God's gift, including the physical one. But sin entered into this world, and many changes happens. Within the family, within the couple, within the marital couple, there are 3 main consequences. The first one is that the permanent love and happiness that God intended to provide to Adam and Eve and everybody else after them is disrupted. Number 2, in order to sustain happiness and harmony, God assigns functions to equals. It's not men above the woman. It's not the woman above the man. We both were created equal, but he intended to give us some specific, not exclusive, but specific functions, so that with the presence of sin, we will have harmony. we will keep the harmony that God intended to have. So that is why God intended to provide to the men the intention, not exclusively, as I said before, to be the provider, financial provider to the family. And God intended, not exclusively, but put special emphasis in gifts to the woman to care for the members of the family, the relationship, the well-being of the home, and everything else. And number three, the third consequences who the couples receive as the presence as a result of the sin is marriage and family go through different stages. God intended to have just one stage, happiness, 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 and happiness. But because of sin being present, 3 stages the couples pass through.
The first stage of marriage is the stage that we call enchantment. It's when everything is romantic, it's interesting, it's exciting. You say, oh, he's perfect for me.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Satisfied, we have great expectations. Oh, we are one. One can start a sentence and the other one can finish a sentence. We are enchanted. And this stage of marriage starts before marriage. Actually, it starts when we meet the person that we think, okay, this is the person for me. This is the person I want to marry. We feel so good with each other that we decide, okay, we can't live apart. We have to get married. This is a beautiful stage. And something happens especially. You will see young people in your church. They are looking at the opposite sex and they are falling in love. But you know what happens when somebody is hit by the love bug? They start seeing things differently. Science has proved that there's some chemicals that code our brain and make us see things differently when we are in love. What happens is that the good qualities that the other person has, we see them exaggeratedly better than they are.
Well, in most cases, because my wife continues to see all the good stuff that I have enlargedly.
Okay, so we see the other person is perfect. We don't see the defects. If the other person has some flaws in their character, we just minimize them, we ignore them, because what happens is our brain is coated with this chemical that makes us see everything perfect. And maybe you have seen in your church that a young lady, maybe a teenager, she falls in love with this guy. And when she falls in love and then she starts going out and she starts dating this guy, the parents say, oh my, why did she choose this fellow? He's a loser. He's got a bad reputation. He's lost several jobs already. Why is our daughter dating this guy? And they feel desperate. They talk to their daughter. They tell her, oh, this guy is not good for you. Do you think she listens? No, she doesn't listen because she's in love. And this chemical has coated her brain and she can't see past that. So they go to their pastor and they say, oh, please, pastor, go and talk to our daughter. She's dating this guy. We don't like him very much. We are concerned. Please talk to her. And the pastor dutifully goes and talks to this young girl. Do you think that she listens to the pastor? No, she doesn't. Because she says, oh no, you're all wrong. You misunderstand him. He's a good guy. The thing is, you can't see him like I see him. Because this is the area of enchantment. And science has proven that this area, this stage of marriage, the stage of enchantment, lasts about 18 months. So it starts when we know each other, when we are engaged, and then this stage continues into marriage. But
For some time.
For some time, like I said, like about 18 months or 2 years or something like that. But suddenly the girl starts seeing the flaws in the other person, or the guy starts seeing the flaws that she has. Oh, she's not as sweet as she seemed. Like, oh, she says, he opened the door for me. Oh, he would send me chocolates. He would send me flowers. And now that we are married, he doesn't send me flowers anymore. And then when we start getting this chemical that covered our brains starts going away, we start seeing the person like the person is. Like the parents of this girl saw this guy, like the pastor saw and gave counsel to this girl. Now she starts seeing that.
But by the way, it is not she is looking now to him, but also he is looking to her. So I mean, she wanted to look girls being perfect and loving and us miserable. Sometimes it goes the other direction. Am I right?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
I'm so sorry.
Now, the second stage is the one that starts when that chemical is worn off. It's the stage of disenchantment. We are disappointed. What did I do? Why did I marry this person? Oh, he's got such a bad temper. Oh, he's so messy. It leaves everything scattered around, and we start getting irritated. We say, this is terrible. What happened to my dream? We had so many great expectations, and now we start feeling resentment because, you know, he was trying to impress me. He was trying to make me fall in love, and now he doesn't do all those things anymore.
You see, she continues to accuse me. Yeah, but let me be honest. Not only the men stop doing some things after the marriage. I'm not saying that it is correct, but we tend not to repeat sending gifts or flowers or cards or chocolate. We did it at the beginning because we were in the mode of pursuing a conquistador, pathfinder. I don't know if it is the word, maybe not. Well, somebody may be able to translate what I mean by conquistador. Conquer, am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and now since I have her with me, I don't need to conquer her anymore. So that is why the man tends to not keep doing those details, which are important, and we should continue to do it, and put the emphasis on let's provide to this new family. Let's provide to her so that we have enough income so that we can satisfy, I can satisfy her with all the things that she wants to have in life. And before the men saying, hey, Pastor, you are accusing us men being the bad individual in the relationship, but you are forgetting that she is also part of that. Let me remind you ladies, that during the honeymoon or the dating time, thank you, you spend so many hours in front of the mirror. Putting everything in place, being perfect. I mean, all the colors, perfect. And now, since you are married, it is good luck to have the time to look on a mirror. And not only that, maybe it is on my culture only, But at least in my culture, the lady, if she was not having the
Hourglass shape.
that's
No.
I mean at that time you put something in here
A girdle.
in order to impress, because she wants to be conquered. Now she marries, she says, oh, fine, I can dress whatever I wanted to look, whatever I wanted to look. I mean, you notice that we all pass through. It is not that we trickle to the other or trick to the other, but it is a stage that we experience.
And the sad thing is that when people get to this stage, they say, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have married. Did somebody have a question? Okay. I made a mistake. And then they say, no, I don't deserve it. I deserve a happy marriage. I didn't marry to be miserable. I didn't marry to be unhappy. I married to have a great relationship. But when this stage of the marriage comes, most women or men say, no, I made a mistake. I deserve to be happy. Because this is what our culture teaches us, that you deserve this car, although you don't have money to pay for that car. But you deserve this vacation, although you don't have money to pay for that vacation. You deserve to have a happy marriage. And then if you don't get that happy marriage, you need to get out of that. And that's the sad part that happens when people get to this stage of marriage.
And when we get to this point, and let me tell you something else. Everybody goes through the enchantment stage, as well as everybody goes through the disenchantment stage. Everybody, including us, and including every one of you, including your son, daughter, your uncle, your neighbor, because we live in the time of sin, and sin created this stage. And because sometimes it is quite hard to overcome and keep going in the marriage, we have three possible responses, three possible attitudes that we can apply when we go through this stage. Number one, to take the attitude of survive. Well, this is the burden I must bear. And they continue together because of children, or because of whatever will say, or because of the family pressure, or for not feeling alone by themselves. So no matter for what purposes, the first attitude we take when we go through this second stage is to put the attitude of survival. Well, that's nothing that I intended to. This is not my goal, but what else can I do to keep running no matter what? There's one part that is positive. Number one is because you wanted to sustain the permanent intention from God for marriage. That it intended to this marriage and marriage, this marriage and marriage. I hope you understand what I mean by this. God intended that once we say yes, we stay there together no matter what happens in our life. I'm not talking about this, but just the things between the two of us. But there's a negative side to this attitude. God never intended to provide Adam and Eve and to all of us a stage that our life will not be happy, because God wants us to have a full life, abundant life in this present world. There's a second attitude. The second attitude is to leave, which is the most common pattern. To leave in a relationship, the easiest part is to take your belongings and to find a space to rest. Another look. But everything else quite more difficult. Let me give you some illustrations, some ideas. Let's say that God gave you 27 children. By the way, it is not needed to have so many children today because the world is overpopulated. But just in case you have 27, where will the 27 kids will stay? Who will take care of them? When God will come back, will ask your parents about their grandkids, but he will continue to ask us where are our children, the children that he gave us are at that moment. If you, I hope, never went to a divorce court, thank you. But if you do, you will notice that just for the sake of belonging, families use such a negative, disrupted words to each other that you feel ashamed listening to them. But let's say you need to divide the two Mercedes-Benz that you have, the two Rolls-Royce that you have, the 5 houses on the beach. I mean, it takes a lot to separate. Not only that, if you were worshiping at the same church, the church that you attend is your church. But since now you have a your, to whom this church belongs to, would you feel comfortable going to that church, or will she feel comfortable going to that church? We were having friends. They were our friends. Since we are not more our, those friends are to whom? Are continue to be my friends, or will continue to be her friends, or nobody else? So to leave the way out because of the attitude that we choose when we go through this enchantment stage, it is not easy. Second section of the leave attitude has to do with being alone. And at the beginning, being alone is a refreshing attitude. You feel more in peace, in tune with yourself. But after some weeks or months, you begin to remember that at least it was not perfect in the marriage, but you had sometimes a nice experience. Principle number 4 that I referred to you. And now you not even have that experience because you feel alone. And time continues to pass. And according to statistics, men who were already married don't see themselves alone for the rest of their lives because they need somebody else to complete themselves. So now you begin on the third piece in searching, because you decided to leave, you went out, you felt alone for some times. Now you are looking for somebody else to complete yourself again. But at that age, when your hair has changed colors, if you still have it, maybe not. And at that time, since you do not grow to the top, you grow to the sides, you may not be so attractive to somebody else. And in addition to that, if you begin looking at the church, you see so many wonderful ladies, But they are your sisters. They don't qualify for intimacy, for closeness, for unity. So you begin talking to your pastor. Pastor, please, let's organize, if we can, a
retreat.
And for just us singles, not singles of 25 years old. No, singles to us 40 plus. And then you go to the camp, you enjoy the weekend, you have a nice experience, you build friendship with your members on the same stage in life, but you continue to be alone. So you ask your pastor, why don't you talk to the Family Life Ministers Director at the conference, Potami Conference, and ask him to have a retreat for singles for the entire conference. Since we didn't find somebody in our church or in your district, let's see if we have somebody at the conference. And since we didn't find, let's go to the division and find one weekend for the entire division for singles to find somebody else. Let's imagine that you have luck enough and you did find somebody. At that moment, when two hearts click each other, something happens in your brain. A chemical put a code in your brain, and you see the new lady or the new guy. Oh, this is perfect. Thank you, God, for the gift. God doesn't have anything in regard to this. It is just choose your chemicals, making a little confused, if you allowed me to say. So you begin the enchantment experience with the second person. But what you do not remember is that enchantment experience, because of the chemical that covers your brain, it only stays for you maybe with good luck in 2 years. And after those 2 years, you are once again in the stage that you decided to live.
And this is very sad. And when we look at couples in Hollywood and other places, some of these people have been married 5, 6 times, 7 times. And what happens? Each time they go through all the stages, they feel, oh, this is the person. But when they get disappointed because they didn't find what they wanted, they go through the circle, they leave, look for another person, and they keep going in circles with person after person and divorce after divorce. Our suggestion is to do something different. Instead of wasting all that energy to leave a relationship and start a new relationship, you need to work on the one you have. It's a lot more easier to work on the relationship you have than to start a new one, because you already have some things in common from the past. You have a history together. You have things that have attracted you to your spouse, to your mate. Just work on that relationship. If you put energy, if you read, if you go to seminars and put energy, you already will be out of this stage, because this is not the stage that you are supposed to stay in. This is only a temporary stage. I remember years ago, we were at a retreat, and after lunch, we were by a lake. It was a beautiful place. A gentleman came and walked to me and said, "Oh, ma'am, how long does this stage of the disenchantment last?" Oh, and he looked so disappointed. He looked so sad. I felt pity for him, because he said, "We have been married 7 years." I mean, this can last 7 years, or it can last months. It all depends on how much energy you're willing to put in the relation you have. Because if you put that energy, you will begin getting out of this area. The plan of God is not for you to stay in that stage, although we talked more about it in proportion related to the other stages, but the best stage is the one of mature love. Because if you can survive this stage of enchantment, you will be getting in the stages of most beautiful. It's the one of mature love, where you're realistic, you're growing. You can agree and disagree, because I'm different persons. It's impossible for us to agree in everything, but we can agree and let the other person live. We are friends. We live and let live. We will become tolerant, thankful, comfortable. It's a different type of relationship. And this is the best part of marriage, the one of the area or the stage of mature love. And this is what God's plan is for us. And this is what we want for each of your marriages, for you to be in the stage of mature love.
As we already said, but let me confirm to you, every couple, meaning you, us, and everybody else, every couple has the potentials to achieve the mature love. Every couple. But in order to achieve that stage, which is God's intentions to you and I, even in this world, current world that we live in, we need to overcome this enchantment stage. Since everybody goes through that enchantment stage, the only way to get into the mature love is to stay there, to invest in your relationship. I don't know if I'm talking to some couples who are married for the second or third time. I don't worry. I'm not concerned with you. My invitation is to stay where you are on the first, second, or whatever marriage. Stay there. If you are passing through the disenchantment stage, don't leave, because you will be suffering. Not only your kids will suffer, not only your family will suffer, but you personally will suffer even more than you can imagine. Mm-hmm. But if you invest in your current relationship, in your current marriage, you will, I can guarantee you, you will experience the mature love, because God is the one that wants you to have this. This is not psychology. This is divine knowledge. This is divine intention for everyone, But probably the question is, how can I achieve to the mature love earlier? How can I overcome this enchantment? And although we already mentioned to you, let's put the 3 pieces in the screen so that we can remember. Number 1 is spending time together. As we did when we began our friendship, and we spent so many hours together, and we were even asked to leave because we spent so much time together. Let's spend time together. No, we cannot repeat that experience because we have more responsibilities in life. But instead of coming everyone at a different time and everyone running a different lifestyle, let's put priority in our relationship and find some time together, spend that time. Number 2, receiving instruction. I congratulate your pastor because he invested through this means something that you can have. Not only depend on your pastors to provide something, but take a DVD, go to the library, buy a book, watch a seminar so that we invest in our relationship. Even if you have the documentation, go to a cruise. I'm talking about going a cruise if you have the documentation, because you don't have the documentation to come back. It will be hard to return to the earth. But enjoy spending time in receiving instruction. And number 4, develop some basic qualities. Some basic qualities. Which ones are those basic qualities? Based on our own experience through not only 45 years of marriage, but also by hundreds and probably thousands of seminars that we conducted in Spanish in different parts of the world, we realized that there are six basic qualities who are essentials to have a better relationship. Which ones are those? Time together, as I indicated to you before, God. Nobody else can provide you the knowledge, the experience, and the guidance that God can, because He is the one that created. Number 3, acceptance. Accept to each other, no matter how different you are. Maybe at the beginning, you were attractive to somebody that it was spontaneous because you are kind of in a box person. But now, since you are in a box, you may want to have a box on her, but she is spontaneous. Accept the difference, because at the beginning, you love it, you attract it. Now you probably not equally, but accept no matter what. Number 4, and this is something that we will continue talking in a moment later, is communication. How to better communicate to each other. Number 5, to have an emotional affirmation. Every one of us, we have a love language. Which one is the love language for my wife? Which one is the love language that I bring to the couple, so that each one provide to that affirmation? And finally, the security. I'm talking about financial security. Somebody indicated in the past that 80% of the divorce has an element in common, which is crisis, financial crisis or stress. I think that we already completed the first seminar at this moment. I don't know if there's any question. Let me see, how do I, oh, right here. Let me see if there's any questions or any comments or something that you wanted to share before entering to the second one.
Questions?
Personal questions.
Oh, there is a question, but it's personal.
Okay.
So
Is some of the ones that are looking on, not on the church, but on their own phone or whatever, feel free to ask a question just by unmute you or by chatting.
here.
Let's,
Is it set up?
okay, let me set that up. Hold on. There you go. And I'm gonna go here and there.
Oh, I'm embarrassed.
No, you're good. Okay.
Where?
Hi.
Okay, that's right.
Where?
Just that place. You want to chat it? You want to? She wants to just to chat.
Oh,
or-
to chat it.
Yeah, because that way just to them though, but you can't show it on the screen because everyone
Oh, yeah. So
So-
let me exit the screen so you can chat it.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. Not here.
Yeah, no, you got it. But then change it from everyone to just to them.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And then we
then
gotta hide the screen so
we
no one-
gotta hide the screen. I'm gonna put the screen out from there so others
There you
won't
go.
be able to
Yep.
see it, and you can chat from here. There. So nobody's gonna see that except that. Any other questions?
I did a comment.
Okay, comment.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Lynn.
Okay, I just want to say thank you. I'm 75 years old and I have learned so much just already from your seminar. And I appreciate that. I think it's going to strengthen my marriage. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And as I indicated at the beginning, what I'm sharing to you, it is something that we learn through our life.
And that's
Not
it.
something that we learn
Answer
in
that.
seminar particular or in a church seminar. I mean,
And yeah, that's directly to them.
everything else, but also
Yeah,
the
that's right,
experience
that's
of
right.
life. And I'm glad
Do you
that
want,
What is that?
something that we
do
share.
you want, that's to everyone, but yours would be private.
Mine is private. Do they answer here?
So one thing you can do is send them your emails or they can respond to you.
Oh, yeah. Please
Okay.
send it.
She can hold us.
You know something else that let me, my wife suggested, and I think it's very good. We will provide to you our cell number so that you can call us personally in order to talk something personal, because we wanted to respect whatever somebody wants to share with us. And the phone number, our phone number, I mean, my phone number is area code 404-432-9098. And Nibia's phone number is
404-630-5709.
we will probably put it on the chat at the end so that everybody can have the possibility to call us if you may wanted to. There is one comment. I love this. Jones Jacob says, happy Sabbath. Excuse me, I have a questions to the pastor. What's the craziest thing you have done for love? Man. Man.
Johannes.
Thing. What is the
The craziest thing was marrying you.
And does the age difference matter? Yes and no. It does make a difference if you are young, because maturity is achieved through ages, typically. But when you are already mature, I'm saying 35 and above, difference in ages, it doesn't make much a difference because the two of you are already mature.
And it's
The
proven.
only difference, I'm sorry, Mamita, the only difference will happen if she is 15 years older than you, she will die before you. But beside that difference, once both of you are mature, and I said 35 years and above, I will say that in an average, we are mature. Sometimes we are 70 and we are still not mature. So those are exceptions, but typically through the ages, through more years in life, we get mature. So difference in ages are not as important as it is at the beginning.
Okay.
You
Yeah, I
went-
wanted to say that men typically reach maturity around when they are 25 years old. They are still maturing. And girls typically are more mature earlier, maybe 19 or 20. So when they are young, there is a difference, but as time goes by, it doesn't. And there's another question that says, do we have to get married? Is it essential to living with Christ, or do we have to have children? Okay, those are two separate questions. Now, do we have to get married? Is it essential to living with Christ?
Definitely. I mean, unless we don't care for what God tells us or his will to us, we can live together without marriage. But if we wanted to be in tune, if we wanted to be in connection, if we wanted to have a relationship with Christ, yes, it is needed to be get married.
Okay, and the other part of the question was, do we have to have children? No, you don't have to have children. Nobody is expected to have children. You can. Most of the people want to have children, but some don't, and that's okay. That is totally fine. There are some studies that have been made about happiness in a relationship. And there are couples that they want to have children and they can't have children. They are couples that want to have children and they have children. And then there are couples that don't want to have children and they don't have children. Which of those three cases do you think are happiest? The happiest are those who don't want children and don't have them, because they have a lot more money, a lot more time for each other. Yes, that is true. But, you know, if a couple, they want to have children and they can't, it's really stressful on the marriage. And for those who want to have children, children are stressful to the marriage.
Oh, yes.
When you get married, your happiness is like this. Can you see my hand? And then when the children come, your happiness starts going down and down and down.
Because you spend so much time and energy on the children's and not on the two of you.
And then when they get to the teenage years, it's bottom. I mean, it's the first part of. But then when the children leave home, then happiness goes up again and you can enjoy happiness again. So children bring a lot of stress to the marriage, but those of us who have children, we can't imagine life without them because they bring so much happiness and joy.
There's one final question. Elizabeth, would you like for us to bring it to the table to everybody, or is it just for us? Elizabeth? And I see your phone is not muted, so you can talk to us if you want to. Are we ready for the second seminar?
We got one more question here.
Oh, okay.
Can you come? That just right here. Right here. So,
Okay.
yeah. So they can hear, because our mic is only like limited to this area. So.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. Nice to talking with you.
Do you think it is important for the opposite sex, for men to learn about how women think, and for the woman to learn how a man thinks? Because I think we think so differently. And I've learned over time that, you know, I think my husband thinks, oh, this way, and he's thinking this when he's totally not thinking that at all. You know, and I'm like, wow, I was way off on that. You know, I mean, do you think it would help a couple to learn about the opposite sex and how they see life, how they think?
Well, many years ago, there was a famous book written by John Gray that was a bestseller. The title was Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus.
Yeah.
And he explains how different we are. We think different. It seems like if we were from different planets. We present seminars, we give one topic is differences. And we talk a lot about how the woman thinks and how the man think. And it's very different. And this, when we present this topic, it clears a lot of problem, because sometimes men think, where does this woman come from with this
Definitely, of
idea?
course.
And once they learn that that's normal for women, they say, oh, okay. And also women, we might think, why does he come up with those ideas?
We are
Well,
perfect.
because he thinks like a man and we think like a woman, and we are very different. So it's very important to learn about differences.
Definitely, I agree 100%. And there are very good books talking about this topic, and as well as if in the future we can be of any benefit to you, we can present that specific aspect so that you can understand to each other a little bit better. Okay, are we now ready for the next?
We'll try to make it shorter so you don't fall asleep.
I have one question.
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier, sorry, I'm eating. You mentioned earlier that there's a chemical coating the brain of the person that is in love. So how do you change that view for that person when you are telling that person that this is not going to work, this relationship is not going to work?
You cannot change it. You need to accept that this is an experience, a unique experience. Since you never had it before, you will not have it again, so you don't know that you have it or not. So when somebody else tells you you are wrong, the natural way is say, no, you are wrong because I see it correctly. So we need to accept that this is part of the reality, but also good to know that it does exist. So that knowing you that it does exist, that experience of the chemical that covers your brain and your way of thinking, you are better prepared when that moment comes that you may be influenced by those chemicals.
And the important thing at this stage also is to, if you're looking into a person or starting a relationship, go and get some counseling or talk to your pastor or to the elder or to your parents if you're young, because they are wise and they can see things. Like right now, and to listen to what others say. They don't have the camera in their brain, so they can see things.
What happened with that?
Thank you.
Okay, let's start the last presentation. I hope that you continue to pray for us. So everyone that is sleeping because of the limitations of language or the boring of the presentation, we sense that you are praying for us. Feel free to continue praying for us. Okay, let's go to the last presentation, and I need to change this so that we can see here. Okay. How to better communicate to each other. By the way, you see here the email, my personal email, as well as the phone number that I mentioned to you before. God tells us something significant in regard to communication. Notice what Ecclesiastes 9:17 says. It is better to listen to the quiet words of a wise person than to the shouts of a ruler at a council of fools. In this case, it is not only talking about what you say, but how do you say it? And that is one of the elements who are important to better communicate to each other. One of the most longitudinal research that has been conducted within family life, which is done by Drs. Stenitz, both husband and wife, and Dufresne, says that the communication is one of the 7 most important of healthy families. One of the 7 most important characteristics of a healthy family. So that is why we are putting so much emphasis on how to better communicate to each other.
Now, what is communication? Somebody has said that communication is the same as blood is to the human body. What would happen if I would tie a tourniquet here in my hand, very tight? It would cut the circulation and my hand would start to ache. It's going to change color. It's going to get blue. And eventually, if nobody unties the tourniquet, my hand is going to die. The same thing happens in our relationship. Communication is what keeps the relationship alive. Now, it's Norman Wright. He wrote a lot about communication, several books he has authored. He says the communication is the art of sending and receiving a clear message. Sometimes the husband, let's suppose, as an example, wants to say something to the wife. He says, I'm going to say something, just an observation. And he thinks that he's sending my way like a little grain of sand. You know, he's sending this message, which is a grain of sand. And
let's say that I'm saying, estás tan linda, mi amor, estás un poquito gordita.
Well, you are so pretty, you're a little overweight.
But I'm telling her with love.
Okay, so he sends this grain of sand, but somehow when it leaves his mouth and reaches my ear, it turned into a boulder, into a rock. And I get hit with his comment and I get hurt. And I said, why did he say that? That was so hurtful. And he has no idea because he said, oh, I just said this little thing. It's not important. But it was for me very hurtful. So they say that communication is an art of sending and receiving a clear message. So what he means, I have to understand it the same way he sent it.
In how to send a clear message. 4 elements, practical elements that we would like to share with you on how to better communicate, how to send a clear message to the other person so that you have higher level of being understood the way that you communicated. Number 1 is to accept the fact that the communication has 3 elements. 1 is words, number 2 is the tone of voice, and number 3 is the body language. Each one of them communicates some of everything else. Words has a value of 7%. So if you communicate, if you talk, and if you talk, and if you talk, and you keep talking and talking and talking and talking. Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't realize. You are only communicating with the 7%. So the receiving part may not be even listening to. The tone of voice has a 38% of value. So if you add the words with the tone of voice, you increase 45% of your communication, but you continue to lose even more than 50% because of the body language. Body language doesn't speak, but it does communicate, has a value of 55%.
And let me put an example. Let's suppose that I come to my husband and I say, oh, you never tell me that you love me. And my husband is on his cell phone looking at his phone and he says, yes, I love you. Okay, the words are correct. He said, yes, I love you. But the tone of voice, what did the tone of voice say? Don't bother me. Yes, I love you. And the body language, he kept looking at his cell phone. So he wasn't even looking at me. So the body language was saying the opposite message of what the words said.
That is correct. Or let's put another example. Let's say that I'm not a pastor. Your pastor asked me to preach. This is my first sermon. I'm scared looking at you. I spent the whole evening, the whole night, writing on my computer the content of the sermon. And I brought it to the pulpit. I look at you. I feel so concerned of you. My body begins to shake all over. So I decided to read the message, the entire sermon, only read it. Do you think that I will be successful? 7%, only 5, 6, 7. 7% only of the communication is achieved by words. So if you and I, we wanted to better communicate, first example, first principle is to apply those 3 elements intended to communicate the same message. Let's say my wife said, you never say that, let's say that you never say to me that I love you.
Yes, I love you.
No, the example, it was different.
It was different.
Yes. Now you need to add all the pieces together.
Oh, yes, I love you.
So do you think that I will be more convinced of what she said to me? Yes. That is the element important so we can achieve better communication to each other. Number 2
is that we have to be active at listening, because we think that listening is something passive. And this is something that I want to read to you. It is listening to understand versus listening to respond. Because we have the capacity to understand about 400 to 500 words a minute. But we have the capacity typically to talk at about 200 words per minute. So let's suppose that my husband is talking to me at 200 words per minute, but I can comprehend 400 or 500. Well, that means I have extra time.
Let me interrupt. Woman, I think what you said is double, women are triple, because you are quicker to listening and responding to us. Am I right, man?
Okay, so if he's talking at 200 words per minute and I can understand up to 400 or 500, that means I have extra time. So while he's talking, I'm processing and I'm thinking how I am going to answer. And let's suppose that your friend calls you this week and says, oh, you can't imagine what happened. My mom yesterday started with stomach pains. We didn't know what was going on. We took her to the emergency room and they had to do a gallbladder surgery. And this is what my friend is telling me on the phone. So I answer, oh, I can't believe it. My aunt had gallbladder surgery last week. Okay, was I listening to her? No, I was thinking how I was going to respond. She told me a story and I said, I'm going to tell you another story. My story is more interesting than yours. You said my mother had a gallbladder attack and I said, okay, my aunt had a gallbladder attack. So we have to be careful how we communicate and how we listen to the other person. Active listening is accepting what was said without judging or without giving a solution. And in this sense, men are very practical. Men have been made by God to solve problems. So when the spouse, the wife, wants to tell man a problem that she is suffering, he thinks that he has to fix it. So he starts giving solution. Let's suppose I say, oh, my job is so hard. I am so tired of this job. And my husband is going to say,
Quit.
okay, quit that job, quit the
Push.
job, because he's not going to listen to the feeling that I have, but he's going to try to give me a solution. But really what I wanted was not a solution. I wanted a sympathetic ear. I wanted somebody to listen to what I'm going through. I wanted understanding. So active listening is accepting what was said without judging or giving a solution. So how do I know if I'm listening well? Well, we have to do what we do when we go to Taco Bell or to McDonald's or we go to Burger King, and they take our order. We say, I want a burrito, and I want a cup of water, and I want a tostada. And then the person that took the order, she reads the order back. That's to verify that she understood it correctly. So if she made a mistake, I have the opportunity of correcting. No, that's not what I wanted. I want a bean burrito, not another thing or whatever. So to know if we are listening well, we have to repeat in our words what we mean to know if the other person was understanding correctly.
And
Now,
number 3, the third principle
is that there are different levels of communication. The first level of communication is the basic form of communication. It's a cliche. If we say, good morning, how are you? How are you doing? It's not a deep communication. It's very basic. Nobody's going to fight because we communicate at this level. Number 2 is communicating about facts. Do you know what happened to our neighbors yesterday? No, what happened? Oh, their dog ran away and they spent until midnight going around the block to see if they could find their dogs. Facts. That's what happened. Now, the third one is opinions, because opinions, this is a level that's deeper in communication, but it's a level where we can fight. Because if my husband says, I think that women should stay in the home and keep, the home clean and don't work outside the home. I said, no, but I have a career and I want to work. That's his opinion. That's my opinion. Is it easier to fight when we talk about our opinions? Yes, it's easier to fight. When we talk about politics, we all have our opinions. And if we express that opinion, we might get into a quarrel with another person.
as well as with football.
Football or
Yes.
soccer or any
Correct.
sport. My team is the best. Now, another level of communication, which is deeper, is feelings. And this is hard. Sometimes, especially as women, we don't express our feelings because we think if he loves me, he needs to know what I'm feeling.
Or he knows what I
Oh, he knows. But you know what? Our husbands think like men. They are wired differently. Their feelings is something very weird for them. And they might not understand our feelings. So I can't expect him to understand my feelings if I don't tell him what my feelings are. I can say, oh, I felt very hurt last night when you said that in front of the people because I felt embarrassed. Okay, I'm expressing my feelings. This is a deeper form of communication. And fifth level, this is the deepest one, is needs. Be able to express what I need. Oh, right now, I really need help here in the kitchen, because I think I'm not gonna be able to stand for about 15 more minutes. Sometimes it's difficult because we also think that he should know or she should know what we need. Now, why do we talk about these levels of communication? Because it's proven that the happiest couples are those that can communicate in the 4th level and the 5th level. When we are able to communicate to our spouse what our needs are, what our feelings are, we are going to feel happy because we have somebody that listens to us, that understands us. But there's many couples, there's many families that live only communicating in level 1 and level 2. And sometimes they get to level 3. But what happens when they get to level 3? They start fighting and the communication stops. Now, for us women, it's easier to get to level 4.
Correct.
For
Because men, we tend to communicate to the 2nd level facts or 3rd level opinions, because every man has an opinion for something else. Woman tends to, but we are in probably deeper attitude or stronger attitude in opinions. My suggestion, our suggestions, is to minimize level 3. Put to the maximum, to ignore opinions, because you have 50% possibility to disagree with your spouse. And the purpose of communication is not to be correct, but to be understandable, to understand to each other. So to the maximum you can, ignore level 3. But men, as I said before, we tend to communicate on level number 2, not number 4, never number 5. We are not wired to feelings. Sometimes we said, what are the feelings? What feelings are? Because we are not used to. Probably some piece of that has culture in mind, but we are not easily to communicate on feelings. So girls, ladies, if you notice that your husband wants to communicate with feelings as a result of this seminar, so he wants to show you that he cares for you, be respectful. He may not even express well because we don't have even the language, the words to communicate feelings. So encourage him when he is doing something, so he notices that it is good to communicate, because the other is not criticizing me because I am not expressing well, but is encouraging me to do it. So in that sense, you ladies can put a piece in favor of us men to communicate in deeper levels.
And how can we improve is asking questions. For instance, let's say that I come from work very tired, and my boss was mean to me. What questions could you ask me to open the lines of communication?
How can I help you?
How can I help you?
No, I'm sorry. How do you feel? That's right.
That's the first. How do you feel about it? How do you feel about it? What do you need from me? Well, how can I help you? Instead of offering an opinion, ask a question when somebody says something. Why do you think that way? How can I help you? Those will help improve communication.
And the 4th principle to better communicate to each other is to be courteous. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
That's she speaks better English than I always pastor Hispanic churches. My entire 40 whatever years in ministry has been with the Hispanics only. My wife has a nurse. She works at hospital, so she understand and communicates much better in English. So be courteous one to each other. In 3 simple examples of how to be courteous. Number 1, do not interrupt the other person. If I'm the one that speak slowly in our relationship, the other person
It's getting impatient.
Correct.
I want to finish the story.
Correct. So be courteous. Accept that nobody runs the speed that you run. God made us all different. Number 2, second example, do not correct the other person, because if I am giving you my story, I don't need somebody to correct what I said. Let's say that I'm sorry, brothers and sisters, because we came a little later today. Our distance, it was 5 miles that we have to run.
No, it was 3.5.
Who cares? Because if she interrupts, if she corrects in front of you, is making me
Look bad.
bad, mentiroso,
Like a liar.
a liar, because she is the perfect calculator to my story. So do not interrupt, do not correct the story of somebody else. It is his or her story. She has or he has the right to express it the way that he wants to share it with everybody. And number 3, encourage the other person to keep the rest of the story. See, let's imagine that I am the ones that loves to be with people and talk to everybody and talk and talk and talk and keep talking all day. If your spouse is quiet there, in sense, imagine that we went to the same place and I'm talking about the story that we went together. Instead of finishing myself the rest of the story, encourage my spouse to keep telling the story that I already began.
Yeah, so encourage the other person to finish the part of the story so that we both can communicate.
So in summary, if we wanted to be more,
You're going back.
I'm sorry, how to better communicate with each other. Number 1, elements, 3 elements. Number 2, active listening. Number 4, communicate to a deeper level of communication. And number 4, be courteous by not interrupting, not correcting, and storytelling. One final concept before any questions that you may have. Successful marriage, Dr. Bernard Brickner said, is not so much the results of finding the ideal person, but of being the ideal person. Everything that we share this afternoon to you, don't think about, oh, he needs to listen to that. He needs to do this, or she needs to apply those. No, think about yourself. What can I do? Because what I am is the maximum potential that my marriage has to achieve happiness. We will never find an ideal person, but we can always try to be the ideal person. So by saying this, we are giving you the floor again.
Okay, and I wanted to mention, we both shared our phone numbers. Due to the fact that we received so many unwanted calls, you know how it is, those robocalls. Sometimes we don't answer the phone if we don't recognize who it is, but you can either leave us a message or send us a text and say, I am from the church, I have a question, I will be calling you, and we'll gladly answer.
And I just put it on the chat, the phone numbers for both of us, okay?
Okay.
So questions?
Junie, can they hear me? Do I need to come up there?
I'm trying to work out something so that I will just go there.
Lynn, you asked a question. Is this a questions to everybody or just to us personally?
She's talking to you. Oops. You're on my phone.
Oh.
You're on your phone.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry. I did send a message through chat. My husband is particularly interested in the factor of obedience in a marriage. This is sometimes a joke and sometimes not. So what actually does the scripture mean when it says, you know, wife, obey your husband?
It's a very important question, Lynn. Thank you very much for opening your heart and bringing us this question. The Bible, we go to Apostle Paul in Ephesians chapter 5, never talk about obedience to each other, but he does refer to two words for men, one, for ladies, another one. For men, he speaks about love your wife, love your wife, love your wife, 3 times in comparison to what Jesus loved his church. In the obedience factor, I'm not talking about that God wants disobedience. I'm not talking about this. I'm just referring that the word obedience is not in relationship to marriage, but the obedience is the result of love. If you, ladies, feel loved by your husband, you will easily to obey him. But if you don't feel love, because this is the commitment, this is the law, this is the order that God provides to us men, then the ladies will be more difficult to obey. The word that Paul says to ladies is respect.
Yeah.
Respect more than submit. Submit is referred to both of them. Respect. So if you ladies respect your husband, they will be more in tune to follow your counsel, your orientation, your experience, your way of thinking. But if the husband doesn't feel respected by you, you are making him more difficult to follow your guidance, your counsel, your suggestion. So the elements, the essential elements for harmony is men love your wife, and ladies respect your husband. And if we do this, we are fulfilling verse 21 of Ephesians 5 that says, submit each other in reverence to Christ.
Thank you.
I've got one more question.
Okay?
in communication, you said to repeat back to your significant other what they've said so that they know what you've heard, which I try and practice, but it drives my wife crazy. She says, every time I say something to you, you repeat it back to me. Or I repeat back to her what I thought I heard her say, which may be something entirely different than what came out of her mouth, which also drives her crazy. But in my defense, a lot of the communication between us is she talks to me from another room or with her back to me or in another room with her back to me with the TV going. And I am expected to be able to interpret what she has said.
Well, ladies has the gift to talk all the ladies at the same time and understand each other.
Yes, yes.
This is not, let me repeat it, this is not the same scenario for men. We need to listen just one person at the same time in a speed that we can not only listen, but also process. I'm not talking that we are ignorant. That's nothing at all. It is just the fact that God made us. I'm not talking in general. Everybody, there's always exceptions to the rule. But in general, men are more into one voice, in slow voice, to clearly understand what it's being said.
Well, I congratulate you because I think that you are doing a good thing in clarifying, because that's the only way that you can know that you understood correctly. As you mentioned, sometimes you didn't understand what she said. So by repeating that gave you the opportunity to clarify the things. I think you're doing right. And maybe we need to be a little patient when somebody is trying to understand us.
Thank you.
I'll try to do better.
I think you will.
So any other?
Well, if there's no other questions, just tell you that we enjoy very, very much this time with you.
Oh, all the way back there. Okay. Yeah.
There is one more question. Let me.
I do. Is the mic over here?
Yeah.
Jenny? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is more of a mundane question. First of all, I just wanted to congratulate you both on a amazing silver hair. Just great. You guys did it perfectly. Okay. Wish we can arrive at the same results, with age. So anyway, more of a mundane question. Just one thing that I found out in my marriage that was challenging, among other things, okay? But certainly one of the things that remained challenging in our 27 years tomorrow is tomorrow, the 26th. Is today the 26th? Today. She's right again, as you can see. She's right again, as you can see. I'm one day behind, apparently. But that is, our interests are very different. And we certainly went through those phases where at the very beginning, you're like, I love that she does this and that and the other thing. All things I don't do, but you still love it about the person, right? And I imagine that she looked at me at the very beginning and said, wow, he's so good at this, and this, all things she doesn't enjoy doing either. So then now you try to go through life as a couple and you're like, we don't have that many interests in common, do we? So you have to bring it all together. Obviously, I've been working at it long enough and had some success with it, but I wanted to hear from you all what your suggestions are about how to make that work. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, because if you made it 27 years, that means you have really learned how to deal with it. But the fact is that we will never agree in everything. Our tastes are different, but sometimes we can put an effort into understanding what the other person likes. And, you know, we don't have to do it all the time, but occasionally. Let's suppose one is good in carpentry. We can go and stand by when he's working at the shop and say, what are you doing? And why are you doing it this way? Oh, I love it. I love the finished product. It's admire what the other person is doing. That way, you know, you don't feel alone in what your tastes are, but you can share a little bit, you know, of the results of that thing that one of you is cultivating. But you must have something that you both like to do together and do it. Maybe you like to walk, maybe you like to sing, maybe you like to travel. I mean, there must be some things that you, and just enjoy those. And it's okay to do things separately, you know, most of the time or sometimes.
Correct. And another example, let's say that vacation. We may have different goals for vacation, which is our scenario. Nibia grew up going to the same place as she was young for many, many years. And for her to have a vacation is going to one place for 14 days or 21 days to read all day, to be quiet, to be in silence. As you can imagine, I am the one that runs. I want to know different places. I wanted to take pictures of this and then go to the next one and take another picture of that. And next night, sleep in a different hotel, in a different, I mean, so since we do have this difference, what we tend to do is one vacation will be under your umbrella, your preference, and the next one will be mine. So the two of us are compromising each other in the purpose of getting a nice vacation.
Okay, and there's a question here. Thanks so much for the seminar. Is culture a communication barrier, which at the beginning one accepts, but later the problems are seen over the years? Okay, culture is very important because we were born maybe in different countries with different customs, different celebration. And I think we need to be accepting. Sometimes it's a little difficult, but I think it's important for us to, the last question, compromise. I mean, I think that is the word that can solve a lot of problems, compromise. Okay, we're gonna celebrate Christmas the way you celebrate it. We are gonna celebrate this holiday or this custom the way you want, compromise.
In the last question that we have here on the chat, what if culturally we are not allowed to express our feelings? I do understand very well this question because I am coming from a culture, maybe my background, my grandparents from Germany and Russia, they do not express feelings. I don't recall, and I never doubt, that my father says, I love you. I had elements to confirm that I was loved by him, but I don't recall him telling me in his face, in my face, I love you, son. So for me to say, I love you, to say, I admire you, you are the best gift that I have from God, is hard. But we should not be determined by our culture, because my culture, your culture is God's culture. So we had been influenced definitely by the way that we had been created, been raised. But we are mature. In one expression of being mature is to overcome those factors that we realize are not ideal. And we learn to apply the ones that we have learned are appropriate.
All right, Pastor Meyer, Nibia, we thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We thank you for sharing with us your experiences and your thoughts. I'm personally grateful. And we will take you up on the offer on inviting you later on for more topics. So we'll be in touch.
Good.
So Pastor, will you close us in prayer?